What they filmed on safari still has no explanation. This was filmed on a safari, and no one can explain it. They came to document wildlife, open plains, distant herds, predictable danger. That's what a safari is supposed to be. But in several separate expeditions, cameras captured something no guide could identify. Not a lion, not a hyena, not a trick of distance or heat. Shapes moving against migration patterns, creatures keeping pace with vehicles, figures standing upright where nothing should. The footage was recorded in daylight, in open terrain, with witnesses, and to this day, no official explanation has ever been given. Number 20. Silent takeover. On what seemed like a routine safari stop, a camera zoomed in on something small near the forest floor. A tarantula stood completely still. No defensive posture, no attempt to flee. Its dark body was covered in delicate white formations that looked almost like frost or snow. But this wasn't weather. It was cordyceps, a parasitic fungus that infiltrates its host from the inside, slowly consuming tissue and eventually replacing it. The spider was no longer just an animal. It was a structure supporting something else. The footage is disturbingly real. No special effects, no staging. At this point, it still feels biological. Understandable, almost explainable. Number 19. Maternal charge. In the delta of Okavango Delta, a group of tourists drifted quietly through narrow channels. Cameras ready, voices low. The water reflected reeds and sky in perfect calm. Then the surface exploded. A female elephant, positioned between the canoes and her calves, charged without warning. The impact flipped the lightweight boats instantly. Equipment plunged into the water. Footage shook violently as shouting mixed with splashing and the deep, guttural roar of an animal protecting its young. One tourist later admitted, "I thought that would be the end of me." It was not mysterious. It was instinct. But from here on, the footage becomes harder to watch calmly. Number 18. Eye contact. What began as a calm safari drive across open savanna quickly shifted tone. A pit bull sat inside a vehicle with its family, windows open to the heat and distant wildlife. Then movement in the grass. A male lion stepped out slowly and walked straight toward the car. No rush, no hesitation. Instead of retreating inside, the dog locked eyes with the predator and stood its ground. Seconds later, the lion lunged, clamping its jaws around the pit bull and holding firm. The dog did not thrash. It did not bark. It stayed unnervingly still. Now the reactions become less predictable and far more difficult to process. Number 17. Thin fabric. In Kaligati Transfrontier Park, a couple slept inside their tent under complete darkness. No campfire, no nearby vehicles, just open wilderness stretching beyond the canvas walls. Then a wet sound broke the silence. 3 lionesses had surrounded the tent. Drawn by the scent of stored water, they began licking the fabric slowly, deliberately. Their rough tongues dragged across the thin barrier, separating predator from human skin. Their faces pressed so close that breath fogged the material. Inside, the couple remained frozen. No weapons, no lights, only fabric between them and one of Africa's most powerful hunters. The separation between safety and exposure now feels dangerously fragile. Number 16. Vanished Trail. Near the Ghost Mountain Inn, Elaine McSorley went out for a simple walk. The surroundings were familiar. Lush vegetation marked paths, open safari terrain. She never returned. Search teams deployed drones. Dogs traced every accessible stretch of land. Boats scanned nearby water routes. Nothing. No footprints leading away from the path. No torn fabric. No signs of struggle. It was as if the landscape had absorbed her without resistance. Days passed, then weeks. Her disappearance remained suspended between dense forest and unanswered questions, an absence with no physical explanation. By now, the threat is no longer only what can be seen. It's what can simply erase. Number 15. Night perimeter. What sounded at first like distant movement in the dark slowly grew closer. In South Africa, a pride of lions approached a campsite while everyone inside slept. No shouting, no running, just quiet inspection. Their silhouettes moved between tents. Eyes reflected faint light. One lion paused near the outer edge, scanning. Another circled behind the vehicles. It felt less like an attack, and more like an assessment. The campers remained unaware, separated from the pride by fabric, metal, and hope. By morning, nothing had happened. But the footage makes one thing clear. In the wild, you are never truly alone, not even when it feels calm. Number 14, last frame. During a safari excursion, a wildlife photographer slipped from the riverbank and fell into the water. The current was slow, the surface calm. For a split second, nothing seemed wrong. Then the water shifted. Hippos are often perceived as passive from a distance, but in close quarters they are territorial and explosive. What followed happened fast. The camera recovered later. Its final image captured a hippopotamus with blood staining its muzzle, staring directly into the lens. No blur, no chaos in frame, just stillness and contact. Seconds after that shot, the recording ends. From here on, these encounters stop feeling accidental. They begin to feel fatal. Number 13, no higher ground. A safari vehicle had stopped only minutes before everything changed. A lion approached, first with slow steps. Then the posture shifted, muscles tightened. The air altered, the animal lunged at the vehicle, striking it with force. Inside the chaos, one tourist made a split-second decision. He climbed the nearest tree. The camera kept recording. From above, his breathing turned uneven. The African wind cut through the microphone. Below, the lion circled, roaring, pacing, looking up. There was no barrier now, no glass, no engine, just bark, gravity, and distance measured in seconds. At this point in the ranking, the wilderness is no longer observing. It's pursuing. Number 12. Riverbend figure. On the remote banks of the Dniester River, a wildlife blogger was calmly filming migratory birds near a quiet bend. The afternoon light reflected softly off the slow current. Then the reeds shifted unnaturally. Across the muddy shore stood what first looked like a horse. Upright posture, solid frame, still. But the proportions were wrong. Its neck extended far too long, curving upward in a smooth, serpentine arc. The skin appeared textured, faintly scaled. Its legs ended not in hooves, but in broad, webbed structures pressed into the mud. It did not drink. It listened. When it stepped into the river, there was no splash, only displacement. From here, the patterns stop resembling wildlife. They resemble something else entirely. Number 11, shoreline hybrid. In a remote stretch of Africa, two teenagers wandered along a dirt access road near a shallow river curve. The afternoon light stretched long shadows across cracked sand. No wind, no insects. Even the water looked frozen in place. One of them began filming footprints near the edge. Then he stopped. About 30 meters ahead, something stood on the shoreline. At first glance, it looked human, tall, upright, shoulders slightly hunched. But as the camera focused, the outline sharpened. The torso was unmistakably human. Elongated arms, fingers curved and too long. From the waist down, however, extended a massive reptilian tail dragging a deep groove through the sand. It did not move like prey. It did not move like a predator. By now, the boundary between species feels disturbingly unstable. Number 10, pasture anomaly. Several ranchers had been tracking something large moving through dry savanna grass for days. Fences bent inward, water troughs overturned. Cattle refused to graze after sunset. They expected a wild bull, maybe an oversized boar. Instead, they found it standing alone in the yellow field as the sun dipped low. No birds overhead, no wind through the grass. Its body was massive, bloated beyond natural proportion, like an overfed bison stretched too tight. But the head was unmistakably canine. Lean muzzle, exposed teeth, lips curled in a slow, deliberate snarl, saliva falling into brittle grass. When it stepped forward, the ground didn't tremble. The grass bent before its hooves even touched. At this point, the wildlife narrative begins to fracture. Number 9. Vertical standoff. For 3 nights, something moved across open savanna fields without triggering motion sensors. Cattle scattered without visible cause, reacting to something that left no tracks. That afternoon, 4 ranchers cornered it in open terrain, blocking its path with a wooden panel. The sky was clear. The wind had stopped completely. The creature rose upright on powerful hind legs like a ram. Thick spiral horns curved backward in near-perfect symmetry. But the torso was wrong, its chest elongated. Ribcage subtly defined beneath dark skin, almost humanoid in proportion. The forelimbs looked adaptable, not purely animal. When it opened its mouth, a low vibration filled the ground. At this stage, the threat is no longer physical, it's structural. Number 8. Open plain figure. A wildlife photographer was tracking distant movement across rolling plains when he noticed a dark shape cresting a shallow dip in the terrain. The sun was sinking behind distant mountains, turning the grass into waves of gold. At first, through the long lens, it looked like a man dragging livestock, but the proportions were wrong. The upper body was unmistakably human. Broad shoulders, dark hair, arms gripping a rope tied to a goat sliding silently across dry earth. Below the waist, however, was the muscular frame of a horse. The transition was seamless. When the figure stopped mid-field, its head turned directly toward the camera, nearly half a kilometer away. From this point forward, the footage stops feeling distant. It feels aware. Number 7. River emergence. A local transport boat drifted along a wide, muddy river beneath dense tropical canopy. The engine sputtered unexpectedly. The current pressed softly against the hull. No bird skimmed the surface. No fish disturbed the water. Then something rose from starboard. At first, it looked like a floating log lifting vertically, but it kept rising. A thick, scaled neck emerged, segmented like ancient armor. Water streamed from its ridges. The head was not fully serpent. Its mouth curved and hardened like a beak. One pale eye rotated independently before fixing on the boat. It did not strike. It did not roar. It held position against the current, perfectly balanced. Now the encounters stop feeling terrestrial. They feel submerged. Number 6. Heatline predator. A wildlife research team was investigating unusual livestock disappearances near remote brushland bordered by low volcanic hills in Africa. The afternoon sun hung low and harsh. No wind, no insects. Even distant road noise felt swallowed by the open terrain. Through a telephoto lens, one investigator froze. About 80 meters away, something enormous crouched low in the dust. At first glance, it resembled a golden eagle. But the proportions were wrong. Its folded wings dragged like a heavy cloak. Talons pressed into dry earth, cracking the soil. A crown of reddish barbed feathers framed eyes set too forward, too aware. The radios filled with static. From here on, the wilderness is no longer behaving naturally. It's responding. Number 5. Canal surface. At the edge of an African safari property, a field worker was checking irrigation gates near dusk when he noticed the canal water was unnaturally still. No birds overhead, no insects touching the surface, just thick, unmoving current. Then something began to rise. It did not splash. It surfaced slowly, rounded, dark, covered in wet hair. The head stopped just above water level. Its skull shape seemed compressed. Where a snout should have been, there was a flattened cavity. Beneath it, uneven, human-like teeth stretched across a jaw too wide for the face. It did not blink. Behind it, the water spiraled briefly, revealing something larger below. We've crossed the midpoint, and explanations are thinning fast. Number 4. Wrong shadow. 4 workers in open savanna brush followed their dog's frantic barking into a clearing, expecting a scavenger bird feeding nearby. Instead, they stopped mid-step. Crouched in the red earth was a massive winged figure, its torso held upright, wings folded tightly against its sides. It resembled a vulture, but far too large. Its face was wrinkled, expressive, eyes deep-set and disturbingly human. It did not attempt to flee. One man prepared a rope. That's when the creature slowly opened its beak, not to screech, but to release a long, trembling exhale. In the footage, the figure remains still, but its shadow does not match. At this level, the distortion is no longer subtle. It's deliberate. Number 3. Dust script. A local explorer was walking toward a dry ravine when he noticed something crouched in the middle of a savanna track. At first, he assumed it was an injured dog. He raised his phone and moved closer. It was not an animal. The body was hunched, covered in dark fur, balanced on 4 limbs. But the head, bald, wrinkled, framed by wild white strands, looked unmistakably elderly, human. The creature used its elongated fingers to scratch symbols into the dust, slow, methodical. It never looked up. When the man stopped walking, it straightened slightly and whispered a single word without moving its mouth. At this stage, there is no safe explanation left. Number 2. Mounted silence. A truck driver returning along a rural road noticed sudden movement tearing through dry savanna brush. Assuming it was loose livestock, he activated his dash camera. What burst from the grass was an enormous wild boar, sprinting at full speed. But the anomaly wasn't the animal. Riding its back was a thin, green humanoid figure, with elongated limbs and pointed ears. Its hands and feet gripped the bristled hide with practiced precision, balanced like a seasoned rider. It did not shout, it did not gesture. It leaned forward, as if whispering into the boar's ear. For 1 second, it turned its face toward the road. Black, expressionless eyes. They vanished into the brush. At this point, retreat is no longer an option. Number 1. Rear view pursuit. They thought the vehicle was fast enough. From the back seat of a safari truck, someone kept filming as dust swallowed the road behind them. Out of that haze emerged a figure no one expected. It ran on 4 powerful legs, equine, muscular, relentless, but its upper body was human. Broad shoulders, arms extended forward, face contorted in a scream that never quite reached the microphone over the engine. The centaur gained ground. Mile after mile, it didn't slow, it didn't stumble, it didn't break stride. The camera shakes, someone shouts to accelerate. The creature's eyes remain locked on the vehicle. This is where the ranking stops being about sightings. This is pursuit.